Here we go, there we land, the cat is out of the bag. It's finally confirmed Adrian Newey will be at Aston Martin from next season onwards. What are the details? Is he just securing the bag, and will this secure Fernando Alonso's third World Championship? Well, my name's Tommo, let's talk about it. Right, I've just finished watching the press conference, gone through all the details. Let's get into it. Let's start with Aston Martin's statement on their website. Adrian Newey begins chapter with Aston Martin Aramco Formula 1 team. Nice little picture of Adrian. No green. He kept a blue suit. Interesting. Would have thought maybe a green little number could have been nice, but we move. F1 Teams of the Future secures F1's Team of the Future. F1's Team of the Future. That's quite a bold statement to put out there. Most sought after signature, which marks the beginning of a milestone long-term partnership. And for sure, like in this conference, you know, Lawrence Stroll was talking this up to be like the biggest thing to Aston Martin Formula 1 team, even bigger than this whole new technical facility that they've built from the ground up. Like, that was a huge project that's still opening, and we'll get onto that a bit more in a bit. It's a massive deal, though. The thing is, all of that is in the pursuit of success, and with Adrian's track record, I mean, nothing's determined, nothing's a given, but they're in a very, very strong position. Committed his long-term future, the Aston Martin Formula 1 team. Managing technical partner. Very, very interesting. So he's a shareholder. He's a shareholder in the Aston Martin Formula 1 team. Now, again, just to clarify, obviously, Lawrence Stroll, he owns Aston Martin Lagonda, the automotive brand. He purchased that after he purchased Racing Point. Or should I say Force India, rebrand it to Racing Point. Then once he was like, cool, I want to buy Aston Martin, the car brand, slap this logo on that Formula 1 team, bosh, crack on from there. But yes, as you can see from this, he's a managing technical partner. He's part of the board, is Adrian Newey, something he's never been offered before. He said this in the little interview with Lawrence and Adrian, and they had Fernando and Lance on it as well. Would recommend you give that a watch in your own time as well. But he said, yeah, he's never been offered that before. And obviously Ferrari are not going to be able to offer him ownership of Scuderia Ferrari. Mercedes, you know, that's three-way split between Toto Wolff, Daimler and Ineos. And Williams, maybe. I think maybe Williams missed a trick, not owning him, offering him some ownership. But at the same time, would the Rilton actually gonna throw all the money that Adrian Newey is actually getting, you know, 30 million, whatever it is a year, the insane package that he's getting, as well as shareholding in the organisation. And again, I'm sure there's lots of contractual blah, 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 right? Is the value 30 million? We're never going to know exactly what's going into his bank account every month. And you know what? I don't really care, okay? That's none of my business. But anyway, another statement of Aston Martin Aramco's Formula 1 ambition. And again, ambition's a dangerous word, okay? Unrealised ambition is certainly a painful potential. But we will see. Brand new technology campus in June. He had a little mooch around, which was interesting and important because Adrian said he decided that he wasn't going to remain at Red Bull around the Suzuka weekend in April. This was about a month after the Christian Horner allegations and the leaks came out. So, I mean, look, who knows how much that played a part in it. I'm not going to speculate on that at the end of the day. But yes, it was June time that he decided to have a butcher. And it was only really by then that he decided that he was definitely going to try and stay in Formula 1. He said, you know, when he decided that he was going to leave Red Bull in April, he didn't have a plan. He wanted to have a clear head, to quote him, to a clear mind to make a decision going forward, be that Ferrari, Mercedes, Williams or Aston Martin or nothing. And of course, he's gone green in the end. The team's limitless ambitions. Lovely jubbly. There is plenty to exercise Adrian's mind in the new role of resetting the technical regs. Of course, Honda power units. Again, obviously, he's worked with Honda for many a year now at Red Bull, producing, well, their most dominant period outside of Sebastian Vettel's dominant periods. I mean, when Max was cleaning up in 2023 last year, and it's still a Honda power unit. It might be badged as a Red Bull powertrain, but it's still a Honda power unit. So, look, reuniting with them again, and it was Aston Martin, Red Bull back then as well anyway. Worked on the Valkyrie. There is a pre-existing relationship, a pre-existing connection there. New wind tunnel, and we've seen how well that new wind tunnel has worked for McLaren, for example. So once Aston Martin do finally get theirs online, it's still a process. They did actually, I can show you here, they opened up a little bit more of their technical facility. The second phase of our AMR technology campus is complete. And Lawrence said they moved in on Monday. So it's only just opened. I went to Aston Martin a couple of months ago. Got to have a little mooch around. That's where I got this hat. And it was cool what you could see, but you could also see it wasn't as big as I was expecting it to be, but also it's not finished. It was only like 1/3 finished. This is the second phase. There will be a third phase as well with more stuff coming. So, look, Aston Martin, on paper, everything seems to make sense. The trajectory is there. I think so. We've had like Alpine making these promises for years and never really fully being able to deliver. Will Aston Martin be able to? The thing is, Lawrence Stroll has the bag. He has the personal interest, the love of motorsport, but also his son in one of those seats. So he's going to be more motivated than most owners, and that's why I've always said, I've not always. I've said this before. I've had doubts at times, but actually, when you think about it, he's more invested. Because he's investing not just on a financial level, but on a personal level in the success of his son, but also the success of the Aston Martin road car brand, which of course they use Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll for marketing activities. They've just relaunched the V12 Vanquish, which is phenomenally beautiful. I love the Aston Martins at the moment. The latest V8 Vantage is just filthy in the best possible way. But anyway, moving back to this statement, something new. Like he says, Adrian wanted something new. He wanted something new. Was he just chasing the bag? Of course, he's being very handsomely paid for this. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure it's just a bag chase. But anyway, Lawrence Stroll, this is huge news. Adrian is the best in the world at what he does. This is just a bit waffle, really. As soon as Adrian became available, we knew we had to make it happen. They talked at length of how they had a pre-existing relationship. Of course, everyone's traveling together. It doesn't matter if you've never worked for the same team. You're always going to be bumping into people. And in the gym, apparently a lot of the groundwork was done. Adrian and Lawrence in the gym. Initial conversations confirmed that there was a shared desire to collaborate in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Adrian is a racer and one of the most competitive people I've ever met. Adrian does love it. He loves an old classic, doesn't he? He loves taking old classic racing. Huge ambition. He believes in this project will help us write the next chapter. Hugely thrilled to be joining the team. Is there anything fascinating here? Wind tunnel at Silverstone, obviously important. Honda and Aramco, obviously Aramco going in on the... aren't Aramco going to be providing fuel for the new generation of cars or something? I feel like they're pushing that. They're like the biggest oil company in the world, so that bag's not coming from nowhere. But yeah, this is the statement. It's look, I think it's surprised a lot of people. I think there's a degree of frustration out there that he didn't go for the romantic Ferrari move. But he's going to be 67 by the time the 2026 season gets started. And he, has his life. He's always worked at UK-based teams, and I can't begrudge him for not wanting to move his life over to Maranello at this stage of his career. When also, Ferrari are onto a good thing. I think Aston Martin is maybe enough of a project to motivate him to want to give it a go with no kind of guarantee of success either. But, Aston Martin's never been at the top of Formula One, not at the top. They got close at the start of 2023, start of last season, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. And yeah, I think it does make a lot of sense. And I also think the Fernando Alonso effect is big on this one, right? I think without Fernando Alonso, this role isn't as enticing. Does he still go for it? Maybe not. But I think to work with Fernando, we know that Adrian has a long had ambitions to work with Fernando. In fact, to quote Adrian from 2019, working with him would have been fantastic. He seems to have bad luck with some choices he has made, but whenever we have spoken with him, he's been very kind. Fernando's ability often exceeds the car in his hands. I think that's the mark of a truly great driver, the ability to stand out despite not having a great car. He also spoke about Fernando in his Beyond the Grid last year. Working with Fernando and Lewis, of course, Lewis at Ferrari would have been a vibe. Would have been fabulous, but it never happened. It's just circumstance sometimes. That's the way it is. Well, now it has. Newey's going to be 67 going into the 26 regs. Fernando's going to be 44. Yet 2026 now, the opportunity that Aston Martin offers has suddenly become a lot more interesting and a lot more viable and realistic for a Fernando Alonso third world championship. Because without Adrian steering the ship, like he will be at the team, in a full-time role as well, working on the F1 project first and foremost. There's time, of course, in the future for Adrian to indulge himself in road car stuff, but the priority is making that F1 team successful. And absolutely, Lawrence Stroll should be tasking Adrian to focus on the F1 project because that's where they need to get it to. Once Aston Martin have their success, then sure, he can try out other things. And Lawrence can utilise that resource that is Adrian to achieve, business interest outside of Formula One with Aston Martin Lagonda, okay? Because he can offer a lot of value to Aston Martin, the car brand. We're in a transitional period for the automotive industry, aren't we? With the electric car revolution, Aston Martin still making V12s. There's going to come a point where these worlds do combine and collect, I guess. But I guess, with Aramco being there at Aston Martin, with their push for sustainable fuels, I know it's kind of a bit of a, what's the word? Not catch-22. The irony of an oil company trying to push a green agenda is seen by us all, right? Okay, but at the end of the day, if you want to keep those cars alive and the sounds of those engines, then synthetic, sustainable fuels are possibly the answer to that. It depends who you are. Some people think that's just not viable at all and never will be. Others a bit more positive and a bit more optimistic about the future of that. And with a performance car brand like Aston Martin that's so reliant on the visceral noise and the smell and the feel of a powerful sports car. But I'm digressing here. This could absolutely be like movie worthy, by the way. 67-year-old Adrian Newey, 44-year-old Fernando Alonso in 2026 winning the world title against all these young pretenders, these young upstarts. There's all the talk in the F1 movie about Brad Pitt being too old. Well, Fernando Alonso is showing that it can be done. This is huge. This is a huge opportunity for Fernando. He's got to stay fit because, realistically, he's only going to be able to carry on at his level for as long as his body allows him to. Is it going to be too little too late? Is Fernando going to have dropped off of that peak level of performance by the time 2026 comes around, which is still another year? Well, it's basically like 2 years until we're in the middle of the 2026 year, isn't it? So it's a tall order. Fernando's going to be looking for some of them cryogenic tablets. I just think so much mutual respect between the two. They've both been at this game for so long, over so many different generations and disciplines. Another thing as well, I think Adrian could really potentially help Fernando towards is a triple crown, right? I think first and foremost, it's the 2026 F1 World Championship that they will be aiming for. And maybe it takes till 27, 20, whatever, right? It's very difficult to expect Fernando to be going into his late 40s and still be competitive in Formula One. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, right? However, in Indy, especially the Indy 500, an oval, it's been proven by many a winner, be that, Takuma Sato winning at, well into his 40s, and the competitiveness of 50-year-olds you see often in IndyCar. He wants that triple crown. He's got the 2 Monaco wins, so that's ticked off. He's got the Le Mans 24-hour win, so he's got that ticked off. To get the triple crown, Adrian Newey is an I used to design cars for IndyCar. He has a history there. He has a love of IndyCar himself. And it would be that would be another nice little subplot. I think if Aston can win in 26 with Fernando Alonso in an Adrian design car, that's the first step. The perfect way it plays out is that then he does the 27 Indy 500 in an entry that's supported by Adrian Newey, and then wins that as well. That's the way it plays out perfectly to end. What an end to Fernando Alonso's career that would be. And again, I hope he stays fit enough, strong enough for long enough to get it done, because it would be a vibe. I guess the last thing to talk about though is what this means for the driver market, because all of a sudden, you know, the appeal of Aston Martin is much more. I mean, not even just from a driver point of view. Enrico Cardile, of course, is going from Ferrari to Aston Martin as well. You've got Dan Fallows already there, ex-Red Bull, used to work with Adrian, so that will help the transition for Newey. Well, what does this mean from a driver's point of view? Because again, you've got Fernando in place, and I don't see that changing. Like, not until... There's no way Fernando walks away from this team before he even gets to drive an Adrian Newey car. That's just not happening. It all comes down again to Lance, doesn't it? And look, we're seeing something at the moment, aren't we, with Lando and Oscar? We're seeing the double-edged swordness of two number ones, trying to have two number ones, the naive pursuit of two number ones, in my opinion, based off of the history, is that it just doesn't work once you get competitive. You've got a clear number 1 and 2 there with Fernando and Lance. So actually, if you're gunning for a drivers' championship, which is what matters the most and is what will bring more brands and more, you know, if Aston Martin win the 2026 Constructors' Championships, but not the drivers' championship, or vice versa, they win the drivers, not constructors. Winning the drivers with Fernando Alonso will do so much more for the Aston Martin brand from a external eyeballs marketing point of view than winning the constructors would. That is just facts. So that has to be the push. So almost you got to think, you know, if they're going to stick with Fernando and give him the shot in 26 in an Adrian Newey car, which it would be, oh my God. And look, Fernando's just signed a really long contract as well. And wait, when did Fernando sign that contract actually? Hang on. Fernando Alonso extension. It was April, interesting. So the multi-year was announced just at pretty much the same time that Adrian, but he hadn't even made a decision about Aston Martin. So maybe Alonso kind of got lucky there that he decided to extend with Aston, because according to Adrian, in April, he'd only decided he wanted to leave and not where he wanted to go next. And that is a clear 1 and 2. So, you know what? I think viable-wise, from a driver's championship point of view, it probably is viable to keep Stroll in that car. But then what does that mean for, well, there's a lot of talk, of course, with Max Verstappen. Will he be in a Red Bull come 2026? The more time goes on, the more I doubt that. George Russell. You know, if George does get usurped by Max, because Toto does seem to still really want Max, then, you know, does he find a home elsewhere? Could that home be at Aston Martin? Russell and Alonso, because them two get along really well, actually. Russell replace Stroll. It's not going to happen, but that would be a vibe. What about Yuki? I mean, Yuki deserves much more than a reserve role, but can Honda keep him in the sport? I mean, we know he's got a seat at V Carbohydrate in 2025, but what about 2026 and beyond? I think Yuki deserves his own shot, and maybe, you know, his connections to Honda might actually inhibit him and hold him back. Tough to say. But yeah, Adrian Newey, Aston Martin, it's done. Crazy. Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Anyway, this is more of a chatty, just getting my thoughts and feelings out there kind of video. Adrian Newey, shareholder, the Aston Martin Aramco Formula 1 team. Big news. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.